Italy is a fairly new country. It's younger than the United States in terms of a
What?
country. The United States is an older nation than Italy.
Hey, Jamie Woods, we here to travel and motivate. No curry, we just trying to keep our minds in a golden state. We answer to nobody but the Lord, we control our fate. Too many things to see just to sit in a hole and bake. We growing, ayy.
Italy is one of the most visited countries in the world, isn't it?
Record-breaking years for tourism in multiple cities, in Cinque Terre, in Napoli, in the Amalfi Coast, in Capri. Almost the infrastructure is not able to handle this influx of people, and a lot of it is because of content creators, right? People like yourself, TikTok, Instagram. People are discovering Italy and the secret treasures that the locals and Italian Americans have known about for decades now are now being proliferated to the world. So it's revolutionized tourism there. Napoli had the most tourists ever in its history last summer and this summer as well.
Well, doesn't Napoli have the best food in all of Italy?
Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble with some of my friends. Napoli definitely has the best pizza. They have their own style of pizza, but each region has its own cuisine that is specialized and local. So they specialize in each village even has their own specialty, which I'd be more than happy to talk to you about some of the regional cuisine that we encountered.
Let's dive into some of the questions that I have for you today, man. So what aspects about Italy make it a must-visit place?
Oh, it's hard to choose one, but the people there are unlike anywhere else I've encountered in the world. Incredibly friendly, outgoing, joyous people, passionate people, whether it's about sports, their religion, their families, but they are very passionate and welcoming. Some countries may not like if you try to speak their language or practice with the people, the locals. In Italy, that doesn't exist. They're very happy to share their language, their customs, show you around. They will open their home to you. We've had people that we had just met open up their doors and cook us a 4-course meal over there, which is the standard. They cooked us a meal and like I was a member of their family. So I don't know if you get that in many other places in the world, but definitely in Italy. So that's first and foremost. And then, of course, the scenery, the history, and the geography, the landscapes of Italy are the stuff of inspiration. People write music, people paint beautiful paintings, and to reflect, and it doesn't do it justice what you see when you visit that country.
I agree with you, man, because I've been in Italy once, and I've been to Rome, Amalfi Coast, kind of like South Italy. I wasn't really up in North Italy, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how it is up there. But I experienced the same thing you did, man. Like, I felt like the people were so kind. Out of all the people I met in Europe, Italians, I'm trying to think who are the kindest people I've met in all of Europe. I think it might be Italians, because French people, I mean, they have their reputation. Spanish people are cool too, but they can be a little snobby at times. No offense. Y'all know how much I love Spain. However, with Italy, I felt the people in Italy were the best. Like, they're super nice. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple rotten apples here or there. But for the most part, everyone there is super nice. They'll welcome you with open arms. They'll feed you. They'll show you around. They'll teach you. And I felt like language barrier wasn't really much of an issue depending where you went. Like, so if you're in Rome, in a big city, you don't really need to know Italian as much, but of course, I'm sure if you go in a small village, that's a thing. But that leads me to my next question: did you experience any language barrier in Italy by any chance?
Yes, because the Italian identity is not as homogenous or monolithic as other countries, right? It is a patchwork of medieval kingdoms that were brought together fairly recently. Italy is a fairly new country. It's younger than the United States in terms of a country. The United States is an older nation than Italy. Italy came about the same time as when we were fighting the Civil War here in America. That's when reunification of the Risorgimento happened in Italy. Before then, it was many different kingdoms at war with each other under the influence of larger empires for centuries, actually since the fall of Rome. So there was no Italian identity in a national sense until the 1860s, around there. which I'll get into. But prior to that, you had the Republic of Venice, you had the Duchy of Milan, you had the Republic of Pisa, these little city states, and they would always fight. And that rivalry is kind of carried over throughout the years, and you see it reflected most in calcio and soccer, right? But Southern Italy was its own nation with its own language, with its own government, with its own king, right?
Wow.
And Torino and the Piedmont was its own kingdom, and it wasn't, like I said, America. A lot of people don't realize that, but America is an older nation than Italy. Yeah, and Germany. Germany and Italy were around the same time formed as a nation. Before that, they were separate, atomized kingdoms. So when your question is, the language barrier exists regionally. So, for instance, the main Italian is Tuscan Italian, right? That's what you learn in universities. That's what is the main language. But when you go to Venice, the Venetians, when I was riding a gondola, listening to their dialect, it almost sounds like Portuguese. There's a lot of sha, and like they have a sing-songy voice and cadence to their language. I could not understand. Then in southern Italy, they speak entirely different regional language. It's not just a dialect. So in Napoli and in Sicily and Calabria, they speak their own languages completely different. I'll give you an example. The word for donkey, right? In standard Italian, what you would learn in university here in America, the word for donkey is asino, right? Like ass, right? In Sicily, it's geco, right? In Campania and Napoli, it's un ciuccio, a ciucciarella, like a ciuccio. So there's three different words, three different languages for one animal, right?
Wow.
Boy, right? Ragazzo in standard Italian, Tuscan Italian, right? And Napoletan, wayun. Why? They had different countries influencing their language. Southern Italy had Spanish influence, French influence, Arabic influence, Greek influence. All these different nations, Normans, all these different nations that had occupied or conquered Southern Italy left their impact on the tongue, on the language. So that's where I noticed the most difficulty is in the regional language. But I know enough Napoletan to get me by when I'm visiting.
Lou, this is why I invited you on, man, because you're dropping hella gems, and we're just how many minutes into this? We're just 18 minutes into this, man. My boy's like, yeah, this and that and that and that. I'm like, God damn, I didn't know that Italy was younger than the United States of America. I was under the impression, because of the educational system here, that the United States was one of the youngest countries in the world, but I guess, especially compared to Europe, but I guess I was wrong. But we have some comments here, man. I think people are loving what you got to say here, Lou. Charles Jones was popping play. Charles Jones says Italy is dope as hell, and then he goes on and says my favorite spot on the planet. I think you told me that before, Charles. He said he's right. They are individual kingdoms. So it looks like you're spot on, man. To me, all Italians sound like they're singing. How Argentines adopted the Italian accent or Spanish. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, a lot of their population a lot of them come from Italy.
60% of Argentinians have Italian ancestry. Yes. Yeah. Very good comment, Charles. Exactly correct. Around the same time, the United States was tearing it apart. Actually, in this, you're going to find this fascinating. The revolutionary in Italy that was responsible for conquering the country, Giuseppe Garibaldi, was actually in the United States at the same time of the Civil War, which is mind-blowing. But to comment on the Argentinian remark, right? 60% of Argentinians trace their ancestry to Italian heritage, right? There was, besides America, other countries when Italy was reunited, the southern portion was conquered, right? And they were subjugated by the North, the Kingdom of Savoy, Giuseppe Garibaldi. And those people left. There were famines. It was a very bad time. Many of them came to Ellis Island. A lot of them went to Argentina, but also places like Canada, Venezuela, Brazil, Australia, South Africa. So they left in those boats out of the port of Naples to all around the world. And you see little Italy's popping up in these different countries abroad. Many of the Venezuelans you'll speak to, a lot of them are getting dual citizenship in Italy right now to escape the economic situation in Venezuela because they have Italian ancestry. A lot of Brazilians. I know a lot of Brazilians right now that are getting dual citizenship with Italy, right? Yep. but yeah, I want to talk more about the conquering of southern Italy, because a lot of these social ailments that you see affecting southern Italy right now, things like organized crime and poverty, and the lack of economic opportunity for the youth, these ghost villages I'm sure you've seen where you could buy a home for €1. These are the long-lasting effects of a conquering of the southern Italians by the North, dating back to the late 1800s, that we're still feeling to this day, in terms of the stratification of resources that the North get opposed to the South. The South was at one point very rich, very wealthy. I mean, look at it geographically, it is the smack dab in the center of the Mediterranean. So all the commerce, all the tradable goods from Spain to the Palestine went through Italy and through the South, to be more specific. And that was all looted, unfortunately, to the North.
Yeah, man, and I know you're a proud Southerner when it comes to Italy. I know your family originates from the South. You love the South. And the thing is, I've noticed even when I was in Italy that there was a little bit of a rivalry, kind of a beef, to where Southern Italians did not like Northern Italians and vice versa. How is that still a thing? Like, do they hate each other? Like, how does that? I would like to know more about that.
There is discrimination that exists. It's not as bad as it used to be. Over the years and decades, there's been somewhat of a national identity that forms. I think where you could see this in a microcosm is in soccer, in calcio. You looked at the Euros, a lot of national teams have a set of ultra fans that go out to watch the matches and they support the team. The Azzurri, the national team for Italy, doesn't really have that. They don't have that type of organizing because of, when Napoli won the Serie A last season, they had a huge banner unveiled where they said, "We're not the champions of Italy, we're the champions in Italy." Why? Because when Napoli plays teams in the North, their fans will unveil banners saying, "Welcome to Italy, where's your passports?" Really horrific things. I've seen banners that say, "You're all cholera sufferers." There was a really bad cholera epidemic in Italy after the Risorgimento. Just really awful stuff I don't even want to repeat on here, but that lasting prejudice towards Southerners, I think, still exists. And there's always been regional rivalries too. I mean, Southerners will be rival. You have Sicilians that have a rivalry towards people in Napoli. I mean, it's just, that's more of like a friendly rivalry, I think. But I'm trying to deconstruct it to a way where sometimes the identity is based solely on the village you're from. Really, it comes down to that microscopic. I'm from this village. I'm from this neighborhood in this village. To the other villages, get lost. You know what I mean? So the national identity is lacking. Like you don't see elsewhere. In Spain, it's not the same. In England, I know. Well, England maybe because you got Scotland, Wales, but France has a strong national identity. You don't see that as much in Italy, unfortunately.
Well, it might sound like a silly question, but why is there such discrimination? Is because Southerners are perceived like poorer or like skin color? What is it exactly?
Poorer, national. I'm getting really deep into this, but hey, why not delve into it, right?
Hey, if you don't feel comfortable though, you don't.
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. If I'm ranting or being too tangential, please feel free to.
No. Listen, Lou, you're. I want you to be uncaged. You're uncaged here, bro. Let loose.
Sure. So, ethnic backgrounds, like I mentioned earlier, the South was conquered by a lot of different ethnicities. So if you trace lineage, good example, if you ever meet an Italian with the last name Saraceno, right? Their ancestry most likely is Turkish, Saracen, right? Greco, if you meet somebody with the last name's Greco, that means the Greek, right? Most likely your ancestors were Greek. Or anything like Albanese or Dialbo, they are Abaresh, which are Albanians of ancestry, right? So the South has a big mixing of cultures that the North don't view as pure Italian, maybe. That might be partially why. Also, the negative stigma of organized crime, the Camorra, the 'Ndrangheta, the Cosa Nostra in Sicily, the poverty, the pollution. A lot of southern Italy is polluted due to the factors I just named, is also why. That's another reason why there's such a negative stigma against Southern Italians from the North. Like I said, it's not as bad as it used to be, but you definitely see an unfurl in the Serie A, unfortunately. In America, it's very bizarre though. In America, because here there's not that knowledge, I guess, of what's going on back home. It's like here we don't give a damn. Like you're Sicilian, you're Calabrese, you're Barese, you're Abruzzese, whatever. We're all Italian American. We don't have that luxury of being divided here. So there's a lot more unity as an Italian identity.
Lou, let me ask you this, Lou. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I want to be educated on this. But I've met some Sicilians here that live here in America that feel that they get discriminated amongst other Italian Americans because they're Sicilian. Is that a thing, or is that maybe just that individual's experience?
I don't want to negate what they've been through in life. I'm sure maybe they've heard some slang derogatory terms or whatever, but I haven't seen that as much in my community. Like I said, like when Italy plays in the World Cup, we go so hard here for Italy. I feel like there's that overarching, like, you're Italian, I'm Italian, you know, we're Italian American, right? So I haven't seen that. No, thankfully, it's like America has bonded us all in a weird way. Like we all found ourselves here from different villages, different regions, and